The act of kindness that changed everything. The old bell above the door jingled as Timmy and his mother, Karen, stepped into Maple Grove Café, their favorite little coffee shop in town. The warm scent of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked pastries enveloped them like a comforting hug. The cafe was bustling with early morning customers, businessmen in suits typing away on laptops, students huddled over textbooks, and elderly couples sipping tea as they read the newspaper. Timmy, a 12-year-old boy with a heart full of kindness, grinned up at his mother. "Can we sit by the window, Mom?" he asked eagerly, his brown eyes shining with excitement. Karen smiled, brushing a stray curl from her son's forehead. "Of course, sweetheart. Let's find a cozy spot." They weaved through the cafe, passing tables filled with laughter, conversation, and the familiar hum of espresso machines. Karen, a single mother, worked long hours at the local hospital as a nurse. Though money was tight, she always made sure to set aside time for these little cafe visits with her son. It was their special tradition, just the two of them, sharing stories and hot cocoa. As they settled into a wooden table near the window, the cafe door chimed again. Timmy, sipping on his hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, glanced up out of habit. A pregnant woman stepped inside, one hand resting on her swollen belly. She looked exhausted, her shoulders sagging as she scanned the room for a place to sit. Her dark curls framed her face, and her eyes, though tired, held a quiet strength. Timmy's heart clenched. "She looks like she needs help." "Mom," he whispered, tugging Karen's sleeve. "That lady, she looks really tired." "And there aren't any seats left." Karen followed her son's gaze. The cafe was indeed full, and people were too wrapped up in their own conversations to notice the woman's discomfort. "You're right, honey," Karen said softly. "Why don't we invite her to sit with us?" Timmy nodded eagerly. Gathering his courage, he slid off his chair and walked toward the woman. "Excuse me, ma'am." Timmy's voice was polite but firm. "My mom and I have extra space at our table. Would you like to sit with us?" The woman blinked in surprise, her tired expression melting into one of gratitude. "That's very kind of you," she said, her voice warm. "Are you sure I wouldn't be intruding?" "Not at all," Timmy beamed. "Please, come sit down and rest." As he led her to their table, Karen smiled at the woman, standing to help her into the chair. "I'm Karen, and this is my son, Timmy." The woman eased herself into the seat with a grateful sigh. "I'm Lisa," she introduced herself, "and I really appreciate this. You two are very kind." Just as they were about to continue their conversation, a deep, gruff voice cut through the cafe. "What's going on here?" A tall, burly man with graying hair and a permanent scowl had turned in his seat to glare at Lisa. He set down his newspaper with an exaggerated sigh, his expression twisted in disapproval. Timmy felt an uneasy chill creep down his spine. "You don't belong here," the man spat, his voice thick with venom. "Go back to where you came from." The cafe went completely silent. Conversations halted, forks stopped clinking against plates, and all eyes turned toward their table. Lisa's fingers tightened around her belly instinctively, her face pale with shock. Karen shot up from her seat, her eyes blazing with fury. "Excuse me. Who do you think you are talking to her like that?" The man, Mr. Anderson, one of the cafe's longtime regulars, snorted. This used to be a nice place before they started letting just about anyone in. Timmy felt his stomach churn. Why was this man being so mean? Lisa hadn't done anything wrong. She was just tired and needed a place to sit. People in the cafe shifted uncomfortably. Some lowered their heads, pretending they weren't hearing the exchange. Others whispered quietly, but no one said a word to stop Mr. Anderson. The silence was suffocating. Timmy's small hands clenched into fists. His heart pounded in his chest. His mom had always told him that it was important to stand up for what was right, even if no one else did. Taking a deep breath, he stood up from his chair. "That's not fair." Timmy's voice rang loud and clear, cutting through the silence like a knife. Everyone turned to stare at him, including Mr. Anderson, who looked shocked that a young boy had dared to challenge him. Timmy's legs trembled, but he didn't sit down. Instead, he squared his small shoulders and held his ground. "She belongs here just as much as anyone else," Timmy said, his voice stronger now. "You're being mean for no reason, and it's wrong." Lisa's eyes widened in disbelief. Karen's heart swelled with pride. Mr. Anderson's face turned red. "Listen here, boy." But Timmy didn't let him finish. "No, you listen," Timmy said firmly. "My mom always tells me that being kind is the most important thing in the world. Would you like it if someone said mean things to you?" The cafe was dead silent. People shifted in their seats. A few nodded in agreement with Timmy's words. Mr. Anderson's face contorted with anger, but then something changed. His scowl wavered. His fists, once clenched at his sides, relaxed slightly. For the first time, he looked uncertain. Timmy took another step forward. "It's never too late to be kind," he said, his voice softer now, but no less determined. "Maybe you should try that instead." Mr. Anderson's face flushed, not with anger this time, but with embarrassment. Murmurs of approval swept through the cafe. People who had remained silent nodded. A few even began to clap softly. Betty, the elderly waitress, stepped forward, her expression stern. "That's enough, Mr. Anderson," she said. "We don't tolerate hate in this cafe." Mr. Anderson huffed, snatched his newspaper, and stormed toward the exit. The door jingled behind him as he disappeared onto the street. A heavy silence settled over the cafe. Then, a burst of applause. Customers began clapping, not for Mr. Anderson, but for Timmy. Lisa turned to Timmy, her eyes brimming with tears. "Thank you, Timmy," she whispered. "You have no idea how much this means." Timmy blushed at the attention, shuffling awkwardly. "I just didn't like seeing you treated that way." Karen ruffled his hair. "And that's exactly why I'm so proud of you." As the applause died down, Lisa reached into her purse and pulled out a small business card. "I'd love to stay in touch," she said, handing it to Karen. "I think we were meant to meet today." Karen took the card with a smile, feeling deep in her heart that this was the start of something much bigger than they could have ever imagined. And Timmy had no idea that his simple act of kindness was about to change his life forever. A mysterious invitation and an unbelievable surprise. Timmy could still feel the warmth of Lisa's gratitude as they finished their breakfast at Maple Grove Café. The lingering glances from the other customers, the quiet nods of approval, and the occasional pat on the back from strangers. It was overwhelming for a 12-year-old. By the time he and his mother stepped outside, a crisp morning breeze greeted them. The sun shone brightly, but Timmy's mind was still racing from what had happened. "Mom, did I do the right thing?" he asked hesitantly as they walked toward their modest blue sit-in. Karen smiled down at him, squeezing his hand. "Of course, sweetheart. Standing up for someone, even when it's hard, is always the right thing." Timmy let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. But even with his mother's reassurance, something about that moment in the cafe felt bigger than himself. As they pulled into their small driveway, the creaky wooden porch of their humble home greeted them. Their house wasn't much, just a 2-bedroom home in an older neighborhood. But it was theirs, and Karen had poured every ounce of love she had into making it feel warm and safe. Timmy kicked off his sneakers and flopped onto the couch, sighing. "That was intense." Karen chuckled as she hung up her coat. "You handled it better than most adults would have." Just as she turned to head into the kitchen, a sharp knock sounded at the door. Karen hesitated, exchanging a glance with Timmy. They weren't expecting anyone. Curious, Timmy hopped up and rushed over. He swung the door open, only to find no one there. Instead, an envelope lay neatly on their welcome mat. Timmy's eyebrows scrunched in confusion as he bent down to pick it up. The envelope was thick, creamy, and expensive looking, with delicate gold swirls decorating the edges. His name was written in elegant, looping handwriting across the front. "Mom, what is this?" he asked, stepping back inside. Karen took the envelope, turning it over in her hands. "There's no return address." A shiver of excitement ran down Timmy's spine. "Should we open it?" Karen nodded, carefully breaking the gold seal. Inside was a beautifully designed invitation that read, "Dear Timmy, you are cordially invited to a special event at Le Jardin Restaurant this evening at 7:00 p.m. Your act of kindness has not gone unnoticed. We would be honored if you and your mother would join us for a celebration of compassion and bravery. Dress smart. No RSVP necessary. We eagerly await your arrival." Timmy's eyes widened as he read the words. Le Jardin. That was the fanciest restaurant in town. The kind of place that people like him and his mom never went to, not because they didn't want to, but because a single meal there probably cost as much as their grocery bill for an entire month. Karen read the invitation twice, then looked up at Timmy, concern etched in her features. "This is unexpected." Timmy bounced on his toes, barely able to contain his excitement. "Mom, we have to go. What if this is from Lisa? Maybe she wants to thank us." Karen bit her lip. It could be, but it still seems a little strange. Who just invites people to a fancy restaurant out of nowhere? Timmy pouted. "But Mom, what if it's real? What if this is something amazing?" Karen sighed, looking at the invitation again. There was something about it, the way it was written, the elegance of the paper, that made it feel important. After a long pause, she nodded. "All right, but before we get too excited, let's make sure it's legitimate." She grabbed her phone and dialed the number listed at the bottom of the invitation. It rang once, twice, before a warm, professional voice answered. "Le Jardin Restaurant. How may I assist you?" Karen cleared her throat. Hi. My name is Karen. My son and I received an invitation to an event at your restaurant tonight. I just wanted to confirm, is this real?" The voice on the other end brightened instantly. Yes. Timmy and Karen, we've been expecting your call. The invitation is absolutely genuine, and we are thrilled that you will be joining us." Karen let out a breath of relief. "Oh, wow. Thank you. Can you tell me more about the event?" The hostess chuckled. "It's a celebration of kindness and bravery. Your son's actions have touched more people than you realize. You'll find out more when you arrive." Timmy's stomach fluttered with excitement. Karen thanked the hostess and hung up. "It's real," she confirmed. "We're actually going." Timmy whooped with joy, practically bouncing across the room. But then his excitement faltered. "Mom, we don't exactly have fancy clothes," he said, looking down at his worn-out jeans and hoodie. Karen pursed her lips. "You're right, but we'll figure something out." That evening, Timmy stood in front of the mirror, his small hands fumbling with the buttons of his best dress shirt. A simple white button-up that had been tucked in the back of his closet for years. It was a little snug, but it would have to do. "Mom, do you think I look okay?" he asked nervously. Karen, who had slipped into an elegant navy blue dress she had borrowed from a friend, smiled and kissed his forehead. "You look handsome, sweetheart. You ready?" Timmy took a deep breath and nodded. "Let's do this." The drive to Le Jardin was both nerve-wracking and thrilling. The closer they got to the upscale part of town, the more Timmy realized just how out of place their old car looked compared to the sleek, expensive vehicles parked along the sidewalk. But Karen squeezed his hand. "Remember, Timmy, you deserve to be here." As they pulled up to the grand, glittering entrance of Le Jardin, a valet in a crisp black suit opened the car door for them. "Welcome," he said with a warm smile. "Right this way." Timmy's heart pounded as they stepped inside. The restaurant was breathtaking. Chandeliers glowed softly overhead. Expensive crystal glasses sparkled on elegantly set tables, and well-dressed patrons spoke in hushed, refined tones. A hostess greeted them immediately. Timmy and Karen. Right this way. She led them through the main dining area, past long tables filled with people in designer suits and evening gowns. Timmy suddenly felt small in his simple outfit. But then, the hostess led them to a private room. As she pushed open the heavy double doors, Timmy's jaw dropped. Standing inside, dressed in an emerald green gown, was Lisa. But she wasn't alone. A group of important-looking people, including business executives, philanthropists, and reporters, stood waiting. Lisa's eyes sparkled as she turned toward Timmy and Karen. "Welcome," she said warmly. "I'm so glad you came." Timmy's heart pounded. Something big was happening, and he had no idea how much his life was about to change. An unforgettable night and a life-altering revelation. Timmy felt his breath catch in his throat as he stepped into the private dining room of Le Jardin. The room was grand yet intimate, bathed in the soft glow of a golden chandelier. A large oval table sat in the center, covered with an exquisite white tablecloth, fine china, and glasses that sparkled like diamonds. But none of that compared to the faces of the people standing before him. Lisa stood at the head of the table, her emerald gown flowing elegantly around her, her smile radiant. But beside her were several well-dressed men and women, their eyes fixed on Timmy with warmth and admiration. Timmy's mother, Karen, stood frozen beside him, her hands gripping his shoulders protectively. The energy in the room felt electric, like something big was about to happen. Lisa stepped forward and bent down slightly to meet Timmy at eye level. "Timmy," she said softly, her voice full of warmth. "I'm so happy you came." Timmy swallowed, still feeling overwhelmed. "Miss Lisa, what is all this? Why are all these people here?" Lisa exchanged a glance with the others before turning back to him. "Because, Timmy, tonight is all about you." Timmy's eyes widened in confusion. "Me? But I didn't do anything special." Lisa's eyes shone with emotion as she gestured for Karen and Timmy to take a seat. As they did, the other guests followed, filling the room with a quiet murmur of excitement. Once everyone was seated, Lisa cleared her throat, drawing all attention to her. "I know this might feel overwhelming," she began, "but I want to take a moment to explain why we're all here." She turned to look at Timmy, her gaze gentle yet powerful. "Timmy, the day you stood up for me at the café, you didn't just defend me. You reminded all of us of something important, that courage and kindness still exist in the world. And sometimes it takes just one person to inspire change." Timmy's face grew warm. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat. I was just doing what was right," he mumbled. Lisa smiled. "And that's exactly why what you did was so extraordinary." A tall, silver-haired man sitting across from them leaned forward. "Timmy, my name is Mr. Bennett. I'm the CEO of a large philanthropic organization that helps communities in need. When I heard about what you did, I knew I had to meet you." Timmy's mouth fell open. You heard about what happened?" Lisa chuckled. "Oh, Timmy, a lot of people heard. The cafe wasn't just full of locals that day. One of my business associates was there too. She recorded everything and shared the story. From there, it spread like wildfire." Karen sucked in a sharp breath. "Wait, are you saying this has been on the internet?" Lisa nodded. "Not just the internet. The news, social media, even local TV stations. People are calling you the brave boy from Maple Grove Café." Timmy's jaw dropped. He had no idea. Lisa continued, "But that's not the only reason we're here tonight. You see, Timmy, I wasn't just any customer in that cafe. I'm actually the owner of several businesses, charities, and investments across the country. And after what you did, I knew I wanted to do something for you." Lisa reached into her clutch purse and pulled out a sealed envelope. Timmy's heart thumped in his chest as she placed it in front of him. "Go ahead," Lisa encouraged. "Open it." With trembling fingers, Timmy tore open the envelope and pulled out a sleek, official-looking document. His eyes scanned the words, then stopped. His mouth fell open. His vision blurred. A scholarship. A full-ride scholarship to any school or university of his choosing. Timmy's hand shook as he stared at the paper. Karen's breath hitched. Lisa, this is too much. Lisa shook her head. No, it isn't. It's an investment. An investment in a boy who stood up for someone when no one else did. A boy who showed more bravery than most adults. Timmy's throat tightened. But what if I don't deserve it? He whispered. Lisa reached forward, taking his small hand in hers. You more than deserve it, Timmy. And this is just the beginning. Timmy's mind whirled. A scholarship. He had always dreamed about going to college, but he knew money was tight. His mom worked so hard, and sometimes they even struggled to pay bills. But now, his future was secure. Tears stung his eyes. I don't know what to say, he choked out. Lisa smiled warmly. You don't have to say anything yet. Just know that this is yours, whenever you're ready. Karen wiped at her eyes, overwhelmed with emotion. Lisa, I don't even know how to begin to thank you. Lisa reached for Karen's hand next. You don't have to, because I have another offer. Karen blinked. What? Lisa leaned forward, her expression serious yet full of warmth. Karen, the way you've raised Timmy, the values, the kindness, the strength you've instilled in him, it's clear that you are an incredible mother. And I would be honored if you'd consider working for me. Karen froze. What? Lisa smiled. I run a foundation that helps single mothers, struggling families, and victims of discrimination. I need someone like you. Someone who understands what it's like to work hard and care deeply. Someone who can make a real impact. Karen's hand flew to her mouth. Lisa, I work at the hospital. And you wouldn't have to leave nursing, Lisa assured her. But I'd like to offer you a better paying position, one with flexible hours. Something that allows you to continue your passion while also having more time for Timmy. Karen's chest ached with emotion. More time with Timmy. A job that actually let her help people and gave her financial security. Tears streamed down her face. Lisa, this is more than I ever dreamed of. Lisa squeezed her hand. That's the thing about kindness, Karen. It has a way of coming back to you. The entire room sat in reverent silence. Then suddenly, applause erupted. Timmy and Karen turned, startled, as the guests clapped enthusiastically. Mr. Bennett smiled warmly. The other philanthropists nodded in approval. Karen let out a shaky laugh, brushing away her tears. Timmy felt like his whole world had shifted. In one single night, everything had changed. He had started the day thinking he was just an ordinary kid. Now, he had a future he never imagined possible. As the applause died down, Lisa lifted her glass. To Timmy, she said, to courage, kindness, and the incredible power of standing up for what's right. The guests raised their glasses in agreement. Timmy took a deep breath, then smiled. Maybe, just maybe, this was only the beginning. The ripple effect of kindness. Timmy lay awake that night, staring at the glow-in-the-dark stars stuck to his bedroom ceiling. His mind was spinning, replaying every second of the surreal evening at Le Jardin. A scholarship. A better job for his mom. An entire room full of people who saw him, really saw him, not as just some kid from a small town, but as someone who made a difference. Timmy turned onto his side and reached under his pillow, where he had tucked away the scholarship letter, as if touching it might help him believe it was real. Could kindness really change someone's life? For the first time, Timmy realized something. The moment he had stood up for Lisa, he hadn't just helped her. He had changed the course of his own life, too. The next morning, Timmy was still half asleep when he heard knocking at the front door. Who could that be this early? Karen murmured, adjusting her robe as she walked toward the door. Timmy sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, as Karen pulled the door open. Standing on their porch, holding a microphone, was a news reporter. A camera crew stood behind her. Good morning. I'm Lisa Howard from Channel 7 News. The woman said with an enthusiastic smile, "Is this the home of Timmy Collins?" Karen blinked. Yes." The reporter's smile widened. "Fantastic. We were hoping to interview the young man who's been making waves all over social media. May we come in?" Karen hesitated, but Timmy rushed forward, still barefoot in his pajamas. "Wait, I'm on the news." The reporter chuckled. "Oh, sweetie, you're not just on the news. You are the news. People all over the country are talking about what you did at the cafe. Your story has gone viral." Timmy's jaw dropped. Karen looked over at her son and saw the shock on his face. She took a deep breath, then nodded. "Come in." The next hour was a whirlwind. The news crew set up their cameras in the living room, adjusting the lighting and testing the microphones. Timmy felt nervous. He had never been interviewed before. What if he said the wrong thing? The reporter smiled reassuringly. "Don't worry, Timmy. Just be yourself and tell your story." And so he did. Timmy recounted everything. How he and his mom had been at the cafe that morning, how he had seen Lisa struggling, and how he couldn't just sit there and do nothing when Mr. Anderson had started saying those awful things. "And why did you decide to stand up for Lisa?" the reporter asked. Timmy glanced at his mother before answering. "Because my mom always tells me that kindness is the most important thing in the world. And because—" He hesitated, then continued, his voice stronger now. "Because if I didn't say something, who would?" The reporter nodded, looking genuinely moved. As the interview wrapped up, she leaned forward with a smile. "Timmy, do you know how many people have been inspired by you?" Timmy shook his head. The reporter chuckled and pulled out her phone. "Let me show you." She opened a social media page and turned the screen toward him. Timmy's eyes widened in disbelief. There were millions of views on a video titled, "12-year-old boy stands up to racism." His words leave an entire cafe silent. The comments poured in. "This kid has more courage than most adults I know. Faith in humanity restored. Timmy for president. We need more people like him in the world." Timmy's hands trembled as he scrolled. He had thought he was just a kid. He hadn't realized that his small act of kindness had reached the world. A flood of surprises. The next few days were a whirlwind of surprises. First, a local businessman showed up at their house and handed Karen a check. "This is for anything you need," he said. "Groceries, bills, clothes, whatever helps." Karen burst into tears. I don't know what to say." "Just keep being the wonderful mom you are," he said with a smile. Then the mayor of their town invited Timmy to a special ceremony at City Hall, where he was awarded a Young Hero of the Year medal. A week later, Timmy's school called an assembly in his honor. When he walked onto the stage, his classmates gave him a standing ovation. Even kids who barely spoke to him before now wanted to sit with him at lunch. Timmy had never been popular, but now people listened to him, respected him. One day, Timmy sat in his room, staring at the news article about himself, and realized something. If his one small act had made this much of a difference, then what else could he do? What if he didn't stop here? What if this was just the beginning? The unexpected letter. One evening, as Karen was cooking dinner, there was another knock on the door. When Timmy opened it, a well-dressed woman stood there, holding a letter in a golden envelope. "Good evening," she said, smiling warmly. "Is Timmy Collins home?" Timmy gulped. "That's me." The woman handed him the letter. "This is from a very special organization that heard about your story. We hope you'll consider their invitation." Timmy's hands shook as he tore open the envelope. Inside was a letter with an official seal. "Dear Timmy Collins, we have been deeply inspired by your courage and compassion. The world needs more young leaders like you. We would like to invite you to be a keynote speaker at our national conference for youth leaders in Washington, D.C. You will join young changemakers from around the country and share your message of kindness and bravery. Travel and accommodations will be fully covered. We hope to see you there." Timmy's heart stopped. Washington, D.C. speaking at a national conference. He turned to his mom, holding up the letter with wide eyes. "Mom," he whispered, "they want me to speak, in front of the whole country." Karen dropped the spoon she was holding, her mouth falling open. "Timmy, oh my goodness." Timmy looked down at the letter again. He had started out as just a kid in a coffee shop. Now he had the chance to inspire kids all over the world. Timmy took a deep breath. "Mom," he said, his voice steady, "I want to do it." Karen smiled, her eyes shining with pride. "Then we'll make it happen." As Timmy clutched the letter, he realized something deep in his heart. Kindness didn't just change his life. It had the power to change the world. And he was just getting started. The power of one voice. Timmy stood frozen in his doorway, still clutching the letter inviting him to Washington, D.C. His heart pounded against his ribs. He had always been just a regular kid, a boy from a small town who liked superheroes and hot chocolate with extra whipped cream. But now he was being asked to speak on a national stage. His hands felt clammy as he turned to his mom. "Mom, what if I mess up?" he whispered. "What if I freeze on stage? What if people think I don't belong there?" Karen crouched down so they were eye level, her gaze steady and reassuring. "Sweetheart, do you remember what you told Mr. Anderson that day in the café?" Timmy nodded slowly. "That it's never too late to be kind." "Exactly," Karen said, squeezing his shoulders. "You spoke from the heart. And that's all you have to do now. Just tell your story. Be yourself. That's what got you here in the first place." Timmy took a deep breath, his fingers tightening around the letter. His mom was right. This wasn't about being perfect. It was about standing up for what was right. And he had already done that once. Maybe he could do it again. Preparing for the big day. The days leading up to Washington, D.C. were a whirlwind. Lisa helped arrange their travel plans, first-class tickets, a beautiful hotel suite, and even a personal mentor to help Timmy prepare his speech. Karen, still adjusting to her new job at Lisa's foundation, took time off to support her son. "You're going to do amazing," she told him every day. Timmy practiced his speech over and over, in front of his mirror, in the backyard, even to their neighbor Mrs. Wilson, who clapped so hard she nearly knocked over her cup of tea. One evening, as he sat on the porch, staring at his notebook full of notes, he felt something nagging at him. Am I really making a difference? Sure, people were calling him brave, but he was just one kid. What could one kid really do? Then he remembered the messages. People from all over had written to him, parents, teachers, even kids his age, telling him that his story gave them courage. A boy from Texas had written, "I stood up for a kid being bullied today because of you. I was scared, but I did it anyway." A teacher from New York wrote, "Your story reminded me why I became a teacher, to help kids grow into people like you." A little girl from Chicago sent a simple message. "Thank you for showing me that being kind makes you strong." Timmy exhaled, feeling the weight of their words. Maybe he wasn't just one kid. Maybe he was part of something bigger. The day of the speech. The morning of the conference, Timmy stood backstage, his hands trembling as he clutched the microphone. Beyond the thick velvet curtain, he could hear the murmur of the crowd. Hundreds of people, including journalists, government officials, and youth leaders from across the country. And in the front row, Lisa, his mom, even some of the strangers from the café who had come to support him. Timmy took a deep breath. "I can do this." The announcer's voice boomed across the auditorium. "Please welcome our next speaker, the boy whose courage inspired a nation, Timmy Collins." The audience erupted into applause. Timmy stepped onto the stage. The lights were bright, blinding for a second. The podium loomed in front of him. He swallowed hard. Then he found his mother's face in the audience. She nodded, her eyes full of love. "Just speak from the heart." Timmy gripped the microphone, took one more deep breath, and began. "Hi," he said, his voice shaky at first. My name is Timmy, and a few weeks ago, I was just a kid at a cafe with my mom." The room fell silent as he continued. "But then, I saw something. I saw someone being treated unfairly, and I knew I couldn't just sit there. I knew I had to say something, even though I was scared." He scanned the room, his confidence growing. "And you know what? Being scared is okay. What matters is that you stand up anyway." A soft murmur rippled through the crowd. Timmy continued, his voice stronger now. "I didn't know that standing up for someone that day would change my life. But here's what I do know now. Kindness is powerful. It's contagious. And it starts with just one person." The crowd listened, hanging onto his words. And if a 12-year-old kid in a cafe can make a difference, then so can you. Timmy looked out at the sea of faces. Asterisk, asterisk, so let's do it. Let's be the people who stand up, speak out, and choose kindness. Asterisk, asterisk, no matter what. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the room exploded into applause. People leaped to their feet. Some whistled, some cheered, and some even wiped away tears. Timmy stood there, breathing heavily, his heart racing. And then, from the front row, Lisa rose to her feet. Then Karen. Then the entire auditorium. A standing ovation. Timmy's eyes stung with emotion. I did it. As he stepped down from the stage, people rushed to congratulate him. A well-dressed woman, a senator, shook his hand. "Young man, you're going to change the world." A news anchor patted his shoulder. "This speech is going to inspire millions." And then Lisa pulled him into a hug. "You did it, Timmy," she whispered. "And this is just the beginning." Timmy smiled through the tears in his eyes. Somewhere deep inside, he knew she was right. Kindness wasn't just something you did once. It was something you lived. And Timmy Collins was just getting started. The impact of one voice. The world seemed bigger now. Timmy had always thought of himself as just a kid from a small town, someone whose biggest worry was whether his hot chocolate had enough whipped cream. But standing on that stage in Washington, hearing the thunderous applause after his speech, he realized something that made his heart race with excitement and fear all at once. His words had power. His actions had meaning. And his story wasn't just his anymore. It belonged to the millions of people who had seen, heard, and been inspired by it. As he and his mother packed up their hotel room the next morning, Karen sat beside him on the bed. "You okay, sweetie?" she asked, brushing a stray curl from his forehead. Timmy nodded slowly, but there was a weight on his chest. "Mom, what now?" Karen tilted her head. "What do you mean?" Timmy swung his legs over the edge of the bed, staring at the patterned carpet beneath his feet. "Before all of this, I was just me. But now, people keep saying I'm inspiring and brave, and that I can change the world." He looked up at her, his brown eyes full of uncertainty. "What if I mess up? What if I can't be the person they think I am?" Karen's heart ached for him. She reached over and squeezed his hands. "Timmy, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have all the answers. The only thing you ever have to do is be yourself." Timmy swallowed hard. But what if being myself isn't enough anymore? Karen pulled him into a hug, holding him close like she had when he was little. "Sweetheart, who you are is more than enough. You don't have to change the whole world in a day. Just keep being kind, keep standing up for what's right, and the rest will follow." Timmy closed his eyes, letting her words settle in his heart. Maybe she was right. Maybe the world didn't need him to be perfect. Maybe it just needed him to keep trying. A life transformed. The moment Timmy returned home, his life was no longer the same. At school, kids who barely noticed him before now rushed to talk to him. Teachers smiled at him differently, as if they saw something in him they hadn't before. Even the principal asked him to speak at an anti-bullying assembly. And then, there were the letters. Hundreds, maybe thousands. They poured into his mailbox, his email, even his school. Letters from kids, parents, teachers, and even celebrities who had seen his story and felt moved. One letter stood out more than the rest. It was from a boy named Jordan. Jordan wrote, "Timmy, I was scared to go to school because kids were bullying me. But after I saw your video, I decided to stand up for myself. It wasn't easy, but I did it. And it's all because of you. Thank you." Timmy read the letter over and over again. He had helped someone. Not by being the superhero, not by being famous, just by being brave when it mattered most. A call that changed everything. One afternoon, Timmy was sitting at the kitchen table, eating a peanut butter and jelly sandwich when his mom's phone rang. Karen wiped her hands on a towel and answered. "Hello." Her face froze. Timmy stopped mid-bite. "Ah yes, this is Karen Collins," she said, her voice laced with shock. "Wait, you're calling from where?" Timmy's heartbeat quickened. Karen listened for a moment longer before her eyes darted to Timmy. "That's incredible." Yes, of course. We'd love to come." Timmy nearly choked on his sandwich. "Come. Where?" Karen set the phone down, her hands shaking with excitement. "Timmy," she said, tears glistening in her eyes. "That was the White House." Timmy dropped his sandwich. The White House, you see. Like the real one, where the president lives." Karen laughed breathlessly, still in shock herself. "Yes, sweetie. They saw your speech in Washington. And now, they'd want you to meet the president." Timmy's mind short-circuited. The president of the United States wanted to meet him. Him. The kid from Maple Grove Café, who just wanted to drink hot chocolate and have a normal day. He felt lightheaded. "Mom, I think I need to sit down." Karen laughed and hugged him tight. "I think I do too, sweetheart." A meeting unlike any other. A week later, Timmy found himself in a place he never imagined he'd be. The White House was even more breathtaking in person. Massive, gleaming white, surrounded by sprawling green lawns and American flags waving in the breeze. As they were led down the hallways by a smiling staff member, Timmy clutched his mom's hand so tightly she laughed. "Sweetie, you're cutting off my circulation." "Sorry," he whispered. "I'm just freaking out." Karen ruffled his hair. "You'll do great." Before he could respond, the doors to the Oval Office swung open. And there, sitting behind the famous resolute desk, was the President of the United States. Timmy Collins. The president stood, beaming as he walked toward him. "It is an honor to meet you, young man." Timmy could barely breathe. It's nice to meet you too, sir," he stammered. The president chuckled and gestured for him and Karen to sit. For the next 30 minutes, they talked about Timmy's story, his dreams, and what he wanted to do next. Then, the president leaned forward, his expression serious. "Timmy, I invited you here because I believe we need more young people like you, people who stand up, even when it's hard, people who aren't afraid to choose kindness over cruelty." Timmy swallowed hard, his hands clasped together tightly in his lap. "I try my best," he said softly. The president smiled. "And that's why I want you to be part of something bigger." Timmy blinked. "Bigger?" The president nodded. "I'm creating a national initiative, a movement that teaches kids across the country about kindness, inclusion, and standing up against injustice." He leaned forward. "And I want you to help lead it." Timmy's heart nearly exploded. "Me? But I'm just a kid." The president grinned. "And that's what makes it so powerful. You've already changed so many lives, Timmy. Imagine how many more you could help." Timmy's hands trembled as he looked at his mom. Karen's eyes were full of pride and love. "Sweetheart," she said softly, "this is your choice. But no matter what, I will always be proud of you." Timmy's chest swelled with emotion. This was bigger than himself. This was about creating a world where kindness wasn't rare, it was the norm. He turned back to the president. "I'll do it," he said, his voice strong. The president smiled. Then let's change the world together. And just like that, Timmy's journey was only beginning, the beginning of a movement. Timmy sat in the back seat of a black SUV, staring out the window as the White House faded behind him. His heart was still pounding. A national initiative. Him, leading a movement that could change the country. He gulped. "Mom, do you think I can really do this?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Karen reached over and gently squeezed his hand. "Sweetheart, look at everything you've done already." Timmy bit his lip. "But this is huge. I'm just a kid. What if I mess up? What if no one listens?" Karen chuckled softly. "Timmy, you're 12. And the President of the United States just asked for your help." Timmy exhaled, rubbing his sweaty palms against his jeans. "When you say it like that, it sounds insane." Karen nodded. "That's because it is insane. But that doesn't mean you can't do it." Timmy looked down at his hands, his thoughts spinning. Lisa had told him this was just the beginning. She had no idea how right she was. A new mission. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. After meeting with the president, Timmy was introduced to a team of advisors, people who specialized in youth activism, education, and social change. They helped him brainstorm ideas for what the initiative could look like. What if we visit schools and talk to kids about standing up for each other? Timmy suggested one day, tapping his pencil against his notebook. Not just about racism, but about bullying, discrimination, and being kind to people who are different. One of the advisors, a woman named Dr. Patel, nodded. "That's a great idea, Timmy. If kids hear this from someone their own age, they'll connect with it even more." Another man, Mr. Jameson, added, "We could also create a national kindness challenge, a program where students complete acts of kindness and submit their stories." Timmy's eyes lit up. Like a movement of kindness, where kids help others and inspire even more people to do the same. "That's exactly what we mean," Dr. Pidle said with a smile. "And you, Timmy, would be the face of it." Timmy gulped. "Me?" Mr. Jameson grinned. "Yep, you're the one who started all this, kid." Timmy felt his stomach flip. This was actually happening. The first event, facing his fears. A month later, Timmy stood in front of a massive auditorium at a middle school in New York City. The stage lights were blinding, and his hands were sweaty as he clutched the microphone. Over 600 students stared back at him. He felt his nerves creeping in. What if they didn't care? What if they thought he was just some kid trying to sound important? Then he spotted something. In the third row, a boy sat hunched over, arms crossed tightly over his chest. He had a bruise on his cheek, and his expression was blank, like he was tired of the world. Timmy's heart squeezed. That kid needed to hear this. Taking a deep breath, Timmy pushed his fear aside. "Hey, everyone," he began. His voice was still a little shaky, but he kept going. "A couple of months ago, I was just like you. A normal kid, sitting in a classroom, worrying about homework and whether I'd get picked last for dodgeball." A few kids chuckled, and Timmy felt his nerves ease a little. "But then one day I was in a café, and I saw someone being treated unfairly. And I had to make a choice. I could stay quiet, or I could say something." The auditorium was silent now. Timmy scanned the crowd, making sure to look people in the eyes. "I was scared. I thought, what if I say the wrong thing? What if no one backs me up?" But I realized something that day. He took a deep breath. Doing the right thing isn't about being fearless. It's about being brave even when you're scared. The auditorium was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. And then, a single clap. Then another. Then the whole auditorium erupted into applause. Timmy let out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. And then something even more incredible happened. The boy in the third row, the one with the bruised cheek, stood up. He didn't say anything. He just nodded. And Timmy knew he had reached him. A movement begins From that day forward, the kindness initiative took off. Timmy visited school after school, talking to thousands of students. The National Kindness Challenge became a huge success. Kids across the country sent in stories of standing up for others, helping classmates, and spreading kindness. Some schools even started kindness clubs, where students planned projects to help their communities. Timmy's inbox was flooded with messages. "Because of you, I helped a new kid at school who didn't have any friends. I spoke up for someone who was being bullied today. I was scared, but I did it." My whole class started doing kindness challenges. We even got our teacher involved. Timmy read every single one. Each story reminded him of something Lisa had told him. Kindness has a way of coming back to you. She had been right. A full circle moment. One afternoon, months later, Timmy was walking through the very same cafe where everything had started. The Maple Grove Cafe hadn't changed. Same warm smell of coffee, same golden brown floors, same chatter of customers. Except now, when Timmy walked in, people recognized him. "Hey, it's the kid from the news," someone whispered. Betty, the elderly waitress, rushed over with a big grin. "Timmy, I saw you on TV. Look at you, all famous now." Timmy laughed. "I wouldn't say famous. Just trying to help." Betty's eyes sparkled. "And you're doing an amazing job, sweetheart." Timmy smiled, then turned his gaze to his usual table by the window. And his breath caught in his throat. Lisa was there. Her pregnant belly was gone now. Instead, she sat with a sleeping baby in her arms. Timmy walked over slowly, not wanting to wake the baby. Lisa looked up, and her eyes filled with emotion. "Timmy," she whispered. For a moment, they just looked at each other, both knowing how much had changed since that day. Then Lisa smiled. "Meet Ovid," she said, glancing down at the tiny baby in her arms. "I named her after my grandmother, but her middle name." Timmy leaned in, his heart pounding. "Her middle name is Hope," Lisa whispered, "because that's what you gave me that day." Timmy's throat tightened. Lisa reached out and squeezed his hand. "You started something that day, Timmy. And now, look at everything you've done." Timmy looked at the baby, then at Lisa, then around at the cafe where it all began. And he realized something. He wasn't just a kid anymore. He was part of something bigger. And kindness had changed everything. For him. For Lisa. And maybe, just maybe, for the whole world.